Hi everybody, Kelly here, another movement mindset reset, my movement musings, and today I want to talk about sloth. Not the furry creature or the, is it one of the 10 deadly sins? Yeah, anyway, whatever, sloth, S-L-O-T-H. So there are, I was listening to a podcast, like I do when I'm out hoofing it about the place, and there's this concept of these 5 different domains of movement that we've got in our lives, and sloth being the acronym for it. So we've got the S stands for sleep, the L stands for leisure time, the O stands for occupation, the T for transport, and the H for home. So you've got these 5 different domains, if you like, within your life where there's this opportunity for movement. And so I've been leaving aside sleep for the time being, just simply because it's kind of tricky to, well, it's one of the hardest places to get more movement in. You're like, how am I going to get more movement in my sleep apart from waking up and moving about? Anyway, so leaving that aside for the moment. So you've got your leisure time, which would be things like, the time that you exercise, the time, your downtime, essentially what you do during your downtime, including exercise, but it could be hobbies, things like that. And then occupation, the obvious one is what you do for work. How much are you, say for instance, you've got a desk job you sit in, but if you've retired, then your occupation might be one of your hobbies. It might be voluntary work, that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be paid. T for transport is transport, how you get from A to B. And then home, the opportunities for movement at home. And, I'm always talking about movement mindset and this transition to my clients, particularly trying to get them to shift from this concept of just purely focusing on exercise and thinking more widely about movement. So exercise, there's a video talking about movement and exercise somewhere in amongst all these other videos. You're obviously moving while you exercise, but your exercise is short-lived. You might do what the government recommends, and what's that, like 30 minutes of moderate exercise 5 days a week, or you might be proper enthusiastic. You might be running and go to the gym, and you might be doing 2 hours of exercise a day, and that's like 14 hours a week. But out of the 68 hours that you've got available to you, the question then is what you're doing the rest of the time. So if we, let's take transport as an example. So if you are traveling A to B all the time in a car, or on public transport, in other words, motorised, it's passive. You're not having to do anything to move your body to get from A to B. It's passive. Active would be you cycle to work, you walk to work, you run part of the way, whatever it is. So we've got this concept of these active and passive type opportunities for movement. And then if you think about home, most of us live in an environment or have set up our own environment where around seating. So if you think really, most of your rooms will have some kind of seating option. Dining room, chairs, obvious, sofa, living room. Bedrooms have got the bed, obviously, that's a platform of rest, if you like. So our environment at home isn't really set up to help us move our bodies. In fact, it's set up completely in the reverse. It's set up to help us generally to rest our bodies. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with rest, but your body really doesn't, or your body and your brain doesn't really understand the difference between when you're out exercising and when you're at home. All it knows is the input that it's receiving from whatever it is that you're doing. And that might be, sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day because you've got a desk job. And then maybe you cycle home from work, but you're still sitting. And people's heads explode at that point when I go, but cycling is still sitting. And your body doesn't really kind of go, oh yeah, but she's cycling now and that's good for me, as opposed to sitting at an office desk, which isn't. It just goes, oh, she's still sitting. So even though you are moving your legs, you're still not getting the full range of movement at your hip, knee, ankle, foot, etc. So you're getting more than you would if you were sitting still, but you're still not getting the full range of movement. And so essentially what we're saying is, an exercise mindset would say, well, I'm cycling and I'm cycling to work and I'm cycling back from work, and that's some exercise. And once I've done that and I'm very stressed because I've been at work all day, or, you know, the kids have got X, Y, and Z to do, and I've got to cook dinner and I've got blah, 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 and you're knackered, and all you want to do is rest. You don't want an environment necessarily that is going to move you. You want to sit and chill out, essentially, and relax from everything that you've been doing. And that's completely understandable. I mean, that then, you know, opens up this conversation to be much bigger about whether that's actually good for us, that kind of level of stress. And then you're like, well, I have to go to work and I have to pay my bills and blah, blah, blah. And absolutely. So like I said, this is more of you know, this is why the movement musings, they're not me saying you've got to live a certain way or whatever. We're just trying to open the conversation, or help people think more widely about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and that exercise isn't necessarily enough. You know, your body wants to move in lots of different ways over a longer period of time, sort of all the time, essentially. And, you know, we are moving all the time, just by virtue of the fact that we are breathing and living, and our brain is constantly working, our cells are dividing, and we are subject to gravity. You know, we're having to support ourselves against gravity all the time. So we're moving constantly, but only certain parts of us are moving. And certainly, you know, certainly when we exercise, only certain parts of us are moving, not everything. So we've got, like I said, we've got the 5 domains: sleep, leisure, occupation, transport, and home. And these are sort of 5 opportunities, if you like, to increase the amount of movement that you've got during the day. And the result of increasing the amount of movement that you've got during the day, or the opportunity to move more, is you're moving more of all of you rather than just parts of you, like at the gym, if you go swimming or running, or try to think what else, play badminton, could be anything, whatever your favourite kind of exercise regime is. You'll tend to do the same thing over and over again. So you're only moving very specific parts of you rather than all your parts, and your body wants all your parts to move. And this lack of movement, this overall daily movement, is often what leads to the problems that we think, you know, oh, I'm exercising, you know, I'm exercising, I go out and I cycle to work, or I play badminton twice a week, and I run, and I go to the gym, and I lift weights, and blah, blah, blah. And those are all great. So again, I'm not saying don't do that, it's rubbish. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we kind of have forgotten about the rest of the time. And if you imagine your body, well, let's put it this way, if you play golf, as a for instance, or tennis, or any other thing that you want to do on this planet, if you want to do something well, you have to practice. And the more you practice, the better at it you get. Driving's a good example. You know, if you remember learning to drive, you didn't know where the gear stick was, you didn't know what the pedals were doing. It was like, you know, and you were having to really focus on what you were doing. And now if you've been driving for any length of time, you know that essentially you could drive from A to B and pretty much not even be aware of where you've come from, because it's second nature. So your body gets better at what you do with it most. And your body doesn't, like I say, know that you are exercising or sitting. It just goes, her hips and knees are at 90 degrees. Now her hips and knees are at 90 degrees, and they're moving a little bit, but they're still at 90 degrees. And so over time, your body will shorten or adapt certain muscles, tendons, tissues around those joints that stop them coming to full range of movement, because you don't need them. And your body thinks you don't need them, because you spend most of your time in this 90-90 sort of chair-shaped position. It's just an example. It's a big example because we spend so much time sitting. There's lots of other smaller examples of things that we do on a regular basis. And an example again would be driving, because whenever you drive, you always use the same feet for the same pedals. You're all sat on the same side. You know, you're driving the same way. You look in the same, all the same kind of thing over and over again. So one side gets better at one thing. If you've ever tried to brake with the opposite foot, I wouldn't suggest doing this unless you're somewhere extremely safe, you know, like an empty car park. Even then, be very aware. Your other foot just has no idea what it's doing when it comes into brake. And it's, so this muscle memory, if you like, that's a word or words that we use to describe how we get better at something. It becomes muscle memory, and it's true. It's like your brain and your body, they have these tracks that they get into. It knows, it's adapted your muscles and your bones, and it's adapted your tissues to make this stuff easier for you, the stuff that you do all the time. And even if you are exercising for an hour a day, 7 days a week, that's still only, I think it's something like 4% of the amount of movement time available to you out of the 168 hours, if you like, in the week. And it's when you start to kind of think on this, or you zoom out and look at what you actually do. I mean, people will, you know, we're going to sort of broach these subjects with clients in the initial stages, because it can be quite a hard sell. You know, it's quite a hard sell to get somebody to go kind of go, oh, you know, well, I like exercise and it's good for me. Well, yeah, it is, in theory, but it's not good for all of you. And so we're trying to build up a range of movements and a range of movement opportunities for your body, so that it experiences, you know, like I say, a greater variety of movement rather than just the same thing over and over again. Because the same thing over and over again is where you get your overuse kind of injuries from. Interestingly, overuse injuries just look exactly the same as underuse injuries. In other words, this kind of Goldilocks sweet spot of movement where it's just enough, not too much, not too little, just right bang in the middle. And your body knows where that is. Your body knows where that is. It's constantly adapting and changing and shifting to try and keep you as healthy and mobile and flexible and strong as it possibly can. But it can only do that with the right input. So what you put in terms of movement really matters in terms of what you then get out. And what you get out, if you're not putting in the right amount of movements or different movements or variety of movements, is your typical start to get lower back pain, start to make those sounds of when I get out of a chair, you know, can't get to and from the floor easily anymore. I have to use my arms to get out of a chair. Starting to lose flexibility. Balance is one that goes fairly early on. That comes back to feet. I mean, we could use feet as another example. If you're constantly in shoes, your foot becomes weak and stiff and doesn't move as well, doesn't sense the environment, and it leads eventually to balance issues and problems with gait, which, you know, if you're somebody who is interested in being healthy and staying healthy for as long as possible, it's all very well living until you're sort of 100, 95, whatever. But you want to be able to move, right? You want to be able to be able to move, and as pain-free as pain-free as possible when you get to that age. It's not enough to just be here. You know, where's your quality of life kind of thing? And my argument would always be that your quality of life comes through your health and your ability to move, particularly. I mean, obviously I'm biased, that's what I do, I teach movement, and alleviating pain and restriction through movement. So I am slightly biased. There's obviously other elements to health, including nutrition being a biggie. But again, you know, if you can eat all the burgers in the world, but if you're moving, that's again my bias. I'm only kidding, really. Can't eat all the burgers in the world. Would you want to? Don't know. So yeah, anyway, movement. So you've got sleep, leisure, occupation, transport, home. How to work more movement into those parts of your life. And movement, I like the transport one, because moving your body from A to B is one of those, it's what we were designed to do. You know, we evolved to live or to exist on 2 feet and to move about on 2 feet. So we walking essentially and running, you know, but walking particularly, we've evolved to walk, and that's why, if you've seen one of my other video posts, I'm waving my Vibrams at you here. These very flexible shoes are designed to walk and experience the world through our feet, or through the soles of our feet, to help us with balance. And put it this way, if you are walking with a more minimal shoe, then you are experiencing more movement of more of your parts because your feet are involved, as an example. And then I'm going to leave it there because I could go on about this all day, and I suspect you're probably already kind of going, oh my God, what's she talking about? So Sleep, leisure, occupation, transport, home. Think about leisure, occupation, transport and home as 4 categories that you can potentially increase the amount of. You're probably already doing the leisure bit. Probably most of us, you know, we've kind of bought into this exercise thing and we're off doing whatever we like to do. Occupation, can you get some more movement into your day-to-day job? Even if that's talking nicely to your boss about taking your shoes off, rolling your feet, getting a standing desk or a kneeling workstation, whichever. Transport, can you make it more active? Can you get from A to B under your own steam? Preferably not on a bike. And then at home, what can you do at home to get some different movement in? I've got, you know, other videos and blog posts to talk about that. So there you go. Thank you for listening.